My best friend, Ellie, slept with my roommate, Alex, who was on the verge of getting married. Alex was about to marry his fiancée, Sarah, and hanging out with Ellie was usually the highlight of my days. I'm 26, a laid-back person who likes to keep things simple. Alex, 28, seemed to have everything figured out, especially with his wedding around the corner. He and Sarah seemed perfect for each other, like characters from a romantic movie. Ellie has been my best friend since our college days. She's full of life, always laughing and making everyone around her feel good. We were as close as two peas in a pod, but in a totally platonic, brother-sister kind of way. She used to come over to our apartment often, making it feel more alive. However, things started to change. Ellie and Alex began getting a bit too close, closer than one would expect from just friends. At first, I told myself it was nothing, friends do get close, right? But then, one night, the revelation hit me like a freight train. I returned home earlier than expected. The apartment was steeped in silence while the city outside buzzed with life, completely oblivious to the storm brewing within. I found Ellie and Alex in a compromising situation. They quickly separated, their faces flushed with guilt, but the damage was done. The image was seared into my memory, a haunting reminder of their betrayal. It was clear they had feelings for each other and had crossed a line. My world was turned upside down. I wanted to be loyal to both of them, but my mind was a mess. On one hand, Alex was about to get married, on the other, Ellie had always been like family to me. The apartment we shared, once filled with jokes and late-night pizza runs, began to feel like a set for a silent movie. Conversations hushed when I walked in, and the air was thick with tension. I noticed the little things, how they'd suddenly stop talking when I entered, and how Ellie's visits became more scheduled. Just thinking about it all made my chest tighten, especially when I was out. I decided to keep this secret bottled up inside. I didn't want to be the one to cause a hurricane in everyone's life. I thought that maybe, if I ignored it long enough, things would resolve themselves. I didn't want to be the reason anyone's happiness was ruined, even if it meant putting on a fake smile every day. For 3 whole months, I lived in this bubble of hope and fear, hope that Alex and Ellie would realize their mistake, and fear of what would happen if Sarah found out. It was like walking on a tightrope, trying to balance everything and pretend to be okay with it all. To act normal around Alex and Ellie, I avoided conversations about relationships, love, or anything remotely related to the secret I was keeping. I started to withdraw, spending more time alone and avoiding coming home. I made sure to let them know when I was about to return, sending a text or making a call saying, "Hey, I'll be there in 10 minutes." I thought this would help me avoid walking into more such awkward moments. But every time I saw them together, it felt like a punch in the gut. I began to dread going home to the apartment, which used to be my place of relaxation. So, I stayed out as much as possible, hanging out at coffee shops, wandering around the library, and doing anything to keep busy and away from the apartment. It felt like I was trying to escape my own life because every time I thought about facing the situation, I just couldn't. I felt like everything around me was a reminder of how much things had changed and how uncomfortable I was in my own home. I kept their secret for 3 months, trying to ignore it and hoping it would just go away, but it was eating at me. Sarah, Alex's fiancée, had no idea, and it didn't seem fair that I was shouldering the weight of this knowledge. I felt I had to do something. It wasn't just about loyalty to Alex anymore, it was about doing what was right. Telling Sarah about what was going on with Alex and Ellie was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, knowing that what I was about to say could potentially ruin lives. But after months of bearing this secret, I could see the strain it was putting on everyone involved, and I felt the weight of it crushing me. I knew it was something that had to be done, and no matter how much I wished things could work out on their own, the reality was that Sarah deserved to know the truth. 3 months later, I decided to meet Sarah in a neutral place, a public yet quiet spot suitable for a serious conversation. I chose a small cafe in the park, a place that felt serene. I hoped it would provide a calm backdrop for the storm I was about to unleash. I remember my hands shaking as I texted her to meet. I tried to sound casual, but every word was heavy with the weight of what was to come. On the day we met, I arrived early, my stomach in knots as I waited. I rehearsed what I wanted to say over and over again, but the words still felt inadequate. How do you tell someone that their world isn't what they think it is? Sarah arrived with a bright smile, completely unaware of the news I was about to break. Seeing her happiness made what I had to do even more difficult. I started the conversation with small talk, trying to ease into it, but how does one ease into something like this? I knew I had to be direct. I told Sarah that there was something important I needed to talk to her about regarding Alex. I emphasized that what I was about to share was difficult for me, but I felt she had a right to know. Then I told her that over the past few months, Alex and Ellie had grown closer in an inappropriate way, especially considering one of them was about to get married. I recounted how I had discovered them and the emotional turmoil I'd gone through in deciding whether or not to tell her. I made it clear that my intention was not to hurt her, but to be honest because I believed she deserved the truth. Throughout the conversation, I watched Sarah's face transform from confusion to shock and then to an emotion I couldn't quite define. Was it hurt? Perhaps betrayal. She asked a few questions, her voice trembling, and I answered as honestly as I could, providing the details she sought. I watched her process the information and come to terms with the reality of the situation. After telling her, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I was relieved that I had finally shared the secret that had been plaguing me, but I dreaded what it meant for Sarah, Alex, and Ellie. I offered Sarah my support in whatever decision she made regarding her future with Alex. I could tell she was devastated. Part of me knew that it was better she heard it from me than from anyone else, or even worse, after the wedding. Walking away from that conversation was like leaving a part of myself behind. I knew things would never be the same again, but I also knew that I had done what I thought was right. It was a moment that changed the course of all our lives, a decision made with a heavy heart but a clear conscience. In the following days, it was like walking through a minefield. Sarah confronted Alex, and the fallout was explosive. I wasn't there, but Alex made sure I knew he blamed me. He came home that night, his face thunderous, and we had a huge argument. "How could you?" he repeated over and over like a broken record. I tried to explain that I couldn't stand by and watch him make a mistake, but he wasn't having any of it. He saw it as the ultimate betrayal. Ellie, on the other hand, was a mix of angry and sad. She thought I had betrayed her by not keeping her secret. Our once unbreakable friendship was starting to crack. She said she understood why I did it, but she still wished I hadn't. Our conversations became stiff, filled with awkward silences and unspoken words. It was clear that things were never going back to the way they were. The atmosphere in the apartment turned icy. Alex and I barely talked, and when we did, it was just the basics. It felt like I was living with a stranger, not the guy who had been my roommate and friend. Ellie stopped coming over, and our group of friends was divided. Suddenly, I found myself on the outside, just like in high school. I started to feel lonely, spending more time out of the apartment, staying late at work, walking around aimlessly, or sitting in parks just to avoid going home, the place that had been filled with so many good memories. The worst part was the isolation. The friends I thought were in my corner were slowly drifting away, unsure of how to navigate the new dynamic. The emotional toll was heavy. I was filled with guilt, constantly wondering if I had made the right decision. Sleepless nights were common, and I found myself questioning not only my actions but also my judgment. Had I really done the right thing, or had I merely destroyed relationships for the sake of my own conscience? The situation in the apartment became unbearable. Alex decided he couldn't live with me anymore, and I couldn't blame him. The search for a new place was swift. I just wanted to get out. It felt like a victory and a defeat simultaneously. I felt as if I was running away, yet I also knew that staying was not an option. The day I left, the apartment was silent. Alex didn't assist me with the move, and there were no goodbyes. It was a quiet end to a chapter of my life that I had thought would endure much longer. In the weeks that followed, the fallout continued. Sarah called off the wedding. Although she didn't blame me, our interactions were tinged with the sadness of what had occurred. Alex and I completely lost touch. Our brotherhood became a victim of the truth. Ellie and I attempted to salvage our friendship, but it was like trying to restore a broken vase. We could place it on the shelf, yet it would never hold water again. Looking back, I wonder if things could have been different if I had remained silent. But deep down, I know I couldn't have lived with myself. The price of honesty was steep, and I paid it in lost friendships and heartache. However, lying to myself and everyone else would have cost me even more. In the end, I learned that some truths are difficult to bear, but living with lies is even harder. After the storm of revelations and the shifting sands of lost friendships, the days gradually began to brighten for me. It wasn't an instantaneous healing, rather, it felt more like the slow blossoming of spring after a harsh winter. I moved into a new apartment, a small yet bright space that felt like a new beginning. In the solitude of my new surroundings, I found peace and, surprisingly, a sense of contentment I hadn't realized I was missing. As I filled the void left by old friendships, I made room for new ones. I also rekindled hobbies I'd put on the back burner. I joined a local soccer team and even started taking guitar lessons. These activities introduced me to circles I would never have crossed otherwise. Through them, I met people who brought new perspectives and laughter into my life. For Ellie and Alex, time has proven to be a great healer. Ellie first reached out with a tentative text that opened the door to reconciliation. Our friendship, once broken, began to mend, not into what it was before, but into something new and more mature. We acknowledged the past but chose to focus on the future, celebrating our new paths and supporting each other. Alex's journey to reconciliation took longer. However, a chance meeting at a friend's wedding brought us back into the same orbit. The initial awkwardness gave way to a heartfelt conversation where apologies were exchanged and forgiveness granted. It was a reminder that while friendships can be strained under the weight of secrets, they can also rebuild stronger in the aftermath. My career took an unexpected yet welcome turn when I was offered a position at a startup. The job was challenging but rewarding, with the added bonus of travel. It allowed me to see parts of the world I had only dreamed about. On one of these trips, I met Maya, a fellow traveler with a passion for adventure and a kindness that drew me to her. Our connection was instant. What began as a shared journey through foreign lands evolved into a partnership I had longed for but never quite found. Years later, as I reflect on the tumultuous time that reshaped my life, I do not view it as a time of loss, but as a crucible that forged my character and my future. Ellie, Alex, and I, though forever changed by the events, found a way to coexist in each other's lives. This is a testament to the enduring power and strength of true friendship. With Maya by my side, exploring the world and building a life together, I am reminded that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations. Happiness, I've learned, is not the absence of pain or conflict, but the resilience to overcome them and find joy on the other side. My story, once marked by betrayal and heartache, is now a story of growth, forgiveness, and new beginnings. And for that, I am grateful. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you who have taken the time to share your stories on. Please continue to journey with us, share your experiences, and together, let's create unforgettable moments.